Let me tell you about the curious case of Britain's wild deer populations. Now, I imagine when I say wild deer, your mind is cast to a forest scene not too dissimilar to this one here in Suffolk, where Bambi and his little friends are frolicking around and nibbling everything and having a lovely time. What you don't realise is that in real life, Bambi is eating all of the food, meaning that none of his friends get to eat anything, all the trees are going bare and riddled with disease, and his friends ultimately die from starvation. Now, that is the reality. Disney won't tell you, but this is why, through nothing but your consumption of venison, if you eat it Monday through to Sunday, will help mitigate an enormous ecological disaster while filling your gut with the most delicious, healthy meat on the planet. But let me show you why. When we talk about ecosystems and the balance of ecosystems, you always think of the flora and the fauna, the animals and the plants working in harmony with each other. That's how these systems work well. The challenge is that in the 1700s, we absolutely smooshed the predators of the deer, namely the wolves, and as a consequence of that, deer populations have exploded. So let's put some numbers behind that. A herd of 100 will grow 80% if not managed by someone like Curtis Pierce. So that means that that'll get to 180 within year one. Is in 4 years, that herd of 100 gets to a herd of 1,000. Spinning that out further, that herd of 1,000 within 10 years will grow to a herd of over 35,000. That's how incredibly reproductive they are. And so you can start to see the destruction that comes as a consequence of this herd not being managed. But let's use that timeline of year one to year four, that herd of 100 to a herd of 1,000 to reflect that 10 times growth. So we start with feed. That's 10 times more food that these deer need to eat, which means that there is 10 times less for all the other animals foraging on the ground to be able to eat. So they start to outcompete and start to starve other populations. Then secondly, in the winter, they'll start to nibble away at the barks on the tree when feed is less available. And by nibbling on this bark, you start to expose the core of that tree, which means it's then more subject to disease. That disease can then spread across forests, and that can have a catastrophic impact on the forest in totality. And then we get to the third point. It's actually what comes out the other end, well, both ends actually. So it's 10 times more poo and the bacteria that then sits on the ground, but it's also 10 times more methane. So if we don't manage those populations, that methane output is just going to compound. And this is where you come in, because there is justifiably huge amounts of uproar about the amount of meat that we eat and the damage that's done through farming. But here is not a farmed meat, it's a wild meat. And this is why you need people like Curtis, because they manage the deer populations, where to Curtis, the venison meat is a byproduct of the process. It's not the aim itself. His aim is to ensure harmony, the ecosystem harmony between the animals and the plant life. And it is also delicious, and it is also healthy. So if you ever need an excuse to eat meat, my God, the obvious starting point is venison. Because every single one you eat is not just great for your palate, it's great for the planet. So get your chops around some venison. The link's in the bio. You can have it delivered directly to your house. And know that you have had a tangible positive impact through nothing but your consumption, and it will taste sensational.